And I call on the civil society authorities, I call on the religious leaders, the traditional rulers, and any other good, well-wishing person where it want to see the Anglophone problem solved and Ambazonia terrorism stopped once and for all, for do what you need to do. And this is all, and this is everything, and this is the only solution. Anything other than this will not work. I tell you, it will not work. I tell you from experience. Thank you, plenty my country people them.
Really, when I say we now, I'm thinking of myself as an Anglophone. I thought in my conclusion, in listening to the interventions of Anglophones, I arrived at the conclusion that they were not saying the same thing, and that they did not really know what their problems were. The problems were not clearly defined. So I thought that it would be good for the Anglophones to meet and define clearly and as objectively as possible what their grievances against the central administration are. And that is why when I met a Monzo that I've known for quite some time and who has international experience, I called him and we spoke together, and he accepted to be a sort of secretary if I propose, the idea of a third Anglophone conference.
On Cameroon Calling today, to situate May 20 in its proper historical context, is a historian who has written several books on Cameroon history, Professor Victor Julius Ngo. In the following interview, I first wanted to know from the professor of history what exactly Cameroonians are celebrating on May 20.
I think this point should be made very clear because there have been lots and lots of confusion, and the public at one time was made to believe that the celebration of May 20th was celebration of reunification. I want to state very clearly that the reunification took place on the 1st of October 1961 between the Republic of Cameroon and the former British Southern Cameroons. So what Cameroonians are celebrating on the 20th of May is the transition from a federal system of government to a unitary system of government. So that's what Cameroonians will be celebrating and have been celebrating since the 20th of May 1972.
Some people have been asking why May 20 is the country's national day and not a day like October 1, which you talked about, that saw the reunification of Southern Cameroon and La République du Cameroun in 1961.
It is important to recall that at one time, 1st January was celebrated as the Independence Day of the former French Cameroon, and 1st October was celebrated as the reunification between the Republic of Cameroon and Southern Cameroon, because Southern Cameroon on that day attained independence by joining the Republic of Cameroon, and it should be underscored that there have been several national days in Cameroon. So what is important to bear in mind that the authorities or the people who enjoy the sovereignty can decide based on some historical factors to decide which particular day they will celebrate. And it so happens that the representatives of the people, the National Assembly, and of course the President of the Republic at the time decided that 20th May should be celebrated as National Day and not 1st January and not 1st October.
There has been debate over the legality of the May 20, 1972 referendum that led to the dismantling of the Federal Republic comprising West Cameroon and East Cameroon. Was it in conformity or not with the provisions of the 1961 Fumban Constitution?
That is a very important point, and lots of sentiments have been put into it. And before I answer the question, I would like to point out that the ongoing conflict in the Northwest and Southwest region has been aggravated by a misinterpretation, misreading of what occurred on 20th of May 1972. To the extent that some young Cameroonians, mostly Anglophones have taken up arms, saying that what occurred on the 20th of May 1972 was a violation of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Cameroon. And they cite Article 47, which in summary form says, no revision of this Constitution, which affects the unity and territorial integrity of the Federation, will be admissible. That is the problem. There are 2 points here. First, the Federation in this context, it should be made very clear. The Federation in this context means the nation, the state, the country, and not the system of government. So that article should be read as follows. No revision of this Constitution which affects the unity and territorial integrity of the nation or of the state or of the country will be admissible. It is not a system of government. And this point is well made in the Constitution of West Cameroon. And it seems as if most Cameroonians don't even know that the state of West Cameroon had its constitution. And it clearly stated that federation means the Federal Republic of Cameroon, which, you should explain it, means the nation, the country, the state, and not the system of government. Secondly, Article 47 says no revision should be taken which affect the unity and territorial integrity. But look at Article 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Cameroon. We all agree that in a democratic society, sovereignty lies with the people, which means that given the political, economic, and social evolution of the country, the people can decide what form of government and what system of government they want, because they have the sovereignty. And Article 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Cameroon clearly stated the sovereignty lies with the people, with the Cameroonian people. And they can exercise their sovereignty either through the elected members of parliament or by a referendum. And Amadou Ahidjo decided on a referendum to ensure that the people expressed their sovereignty. And of course, the National Assembly, the Federal National Assembly at the time, comprised 50 members, 40 from East Cameroon and 10 from West Cameroon. And there was a proviso which gave veto powers, and it stated clearly, for any major constitutional revision to be implemented, a majority of parliamentarians from both states, East Cameroon, West Cameroon, must accept or must vote yes. Which means that if all the 40 parliamentarians from East Cameroon voted yes, and 4 of the parliamentarians from West Cameroon voted yes, which means 44 parliamentarians voted yes, and 6 parliamentarians from West Cameroon voted no, the revision or the abrogation of the federal system would not have taken place. So Cameroonians should be made to understand that it was not a violation of the Constitution. It was not a violation of Article 47. And I would like to end on this point. Cameroonians, historians, scholars should make the difference between what is constitutionally correct and what is politically unwise.
You said sovereignty lies with the people,
yes,
and yet it's the then President Amadou Ahidjo who decided that sovereignty or the will of the people should be decided through a referendum. Is there an incongruity here?
Of course not, because it was tabled in the National Assembly and the parliamentarians representing the people approved the motion. And of course, for Ahidjo to be very sure, because the tendency at that time, we are talking of 1972, it was a one-party system. And there was a possibility that opponents of the unitary system would say, oh, it was a one-party system and they all told a party line. Of course, Amadou Ahidjo, as politically smart as he was, said, okay, we'll give it to the people to decide. And by a vast majority, more than 98%, West Cameroonians voted yes. East Cameroon, 98% voted yes. And it is necessary because there's this feeling that was the overwhelming Francophone population, French-speaking population in West Cameroon that tilted the vote. No, we are talking of 1972. We are not talking of 2024. 1972, the proportion of French-speaking Cameroonians in West Cameroon was very, very small. And that played into Ahidjo's decision that the vote should be counted separately, although at the end they were declared as one. And it counted separately. It showed that West Cameroonians, in their vast majority, voted in favor of abrogating the federal system.
How true are claims that the referendum was a choice between we and yes?
This is one of those sentimental distortion of what occurred. And surprisingly, some educated Cameroonians believe that that's what occurred. It was between we and yes. No, there were 2 ballot papers. The white ballot paper and the black ballot paper. The white ballot paper had it in French with the question yes or no, French and English, yes or no, and the black ballot paper had it in French and English, yes or no. So it is dishonest for anybody to say there was only one option choice, yes or we, no. And this comes out very clearly during the campaigns. Augustine Ngomjwa explained it very well in the northern section when he said there are two questions, two ballot papers. One is black, one is white. And he went to the extent of saying white indicates cleanness, purity, and black, evil, darkness. Do you accept white or do you accept black? Do you accept darkness or do you accept evil? And of course the population said they accepted light. So Cameroonians should understand there were two ballot papers, black and white.
What were the factors that favored the vote for a unitary state in 1972?
I should start by explaining that with all due respect to the French political system, the French political system is very uncomfortable with a federal system. It is not in the French political culture. So as far back as 1960, 1961, the advisors of Amadou Ahidjo had in mind a unitary system. But Ahidjo and his advisors knew fully well that it was too early to insist on a unitary system. So even when Ahidjo and Foncha agreed that reunification or this union will be based on federation, Anglophone federal system, but again, it was not clarified. You can have a strongly centralized federal system and you can have a loose federal system. While the KNDP and Foncha were talking of a loose federal system, Amadou Ahidjo and French Cameroonians were talking of a strongly centralized federal system. So when they met in Fumban and subsequently in the Yaoundé tripartite conference in August, that issue of should it be a centralized federal system or a decentralized federal system had not been solved. So that should be made very, very clear. So between 1961 and 1972, the political system in West Cameroon played into the hands of the proponents of a unitary system. There were serious victimizations in West Cameroon, and it was not Ahidjo who carried out the victimization. It was carried out by West Cameroonians themselves. And of course, government teachers, civil servants, mission students were not well paid, unlike their counterparts in East Cameroon. So the civil servants wanted the same salary structure, and they all supported the dismantling of the federal system. And even within the political class, the political victimization was such that in February 1972, Augustine Ngomjwa sent a confidential letter to Amadou Ahidjo, begging Amadou Ahidjo to come and rescue him, or else, quote, Muna and his gangsters will kill him. Those are not my words. So you had a situation where everybody looked up to Amadou Ahidjo. And of course, there were financial scandals, Powercam, Cameroon Bank and the rest. And at one time, Cameroon Bank, which was the bank of the West Cameroon government, was unable to pay civil servants their salaries. They had to plead with Amadou Ahidjo for financial support in order to secure or revive Cameroon Bank. And it is important to note that during this period, almost 99% of the customers of Cameroon Bank and the workers of Cameroon Bank were all Anglophones. And of course, the issue of oil, Indian, the Nigerian Civil War, which ran from 1967 to 1970, was there. And the Ahidjo government was scared because there were secessionist tendencies in West Cameroon. And Ahidjo felt that should the declared Republic of Biafra succeed, West Cameroon will follow. So to prevent that, a unitary system should be put in place. So those are some of the reasons.
The outcome of the 1972 referendum was the union of two major communities, the Francophones and the Anglophones. And the then constitution did talk of a union on equal terms. From the standpoint of the historian you are, what would you say accounts for the fact that that constitution has not been respected to the letter?
Yeah, I think we have a couple of reasons. First of all, let me clarify a point. When in February 1959, Amadou Ahidjo said at the UN, discussions and union will be done on equal basis. We are talking of February 1959. At that time, French Cameroon was administered by France on behalf of the UN. Southern Cameroon was administered by Britain on behalf of the UN. All the two territories were trust territories of the UN. So at that point, they were equal. So we should take Amadou Ahidjo's statement, February 1959, the two territories, the two parties were equal. But as from January 1st, 1960, and the negotiation between Southern Cameroon and the Republic of Cameroon, which followed after that, unfortunately, the two territories were no longer equal. One was independent and a member of the UN, the other was still a trust territory. But when finally they agreed to achieve independence, they were now equal. Southern Cameroon came in, Republic of Cameroon came in, and the federal constitution was adopted. It should be pointed out, although the federal constitution was adopted, and this is what most Cameroonians and politicians don't want it to be said, history is history. You don't quarrel with a messenger. He brings the news, whether the news is good or bad, it is not his fault. The draft federal constitution, which was an amendment of the constitution of the Republic of Cameroon, was tabled in August 1961 in the National Assembly of the Republic of Cameroon. And the National Assembly of the Republic of Cameroon debated and adopted the draft federal constitution. It was never submitted in the Southern Cameroon House of Assembly for discussion and adoption. That should be made very clear. What was submitted in the Southern Cameroon's House of Assembly later in September was not the draft. Amadou Ahidjo signed the draft after the National Assembly of the Republic of Cameroon had adopted it in August. Amadou Ahidjo signed it on the 1st of September 1961. So there again, that's the problem. And this point was raised at the Yaoundé tripartite conference, which ran from 2nd to the 7th of August 1961. Augustin Ngomjua raised the issue. It will be necessary and important for the Southern Cameroon House of Assembly to also deliberate on this draft as what is being done in the Assembly of the Republic of Cameroon. And surprisingly, Augustin Ngomjua was told in the meeting, whatever draft constitution the National Assembly of the Republic of Cameroon adopts, Southern Cameroon is bound to accept. And in the hall, none of the Southern Cameroon's delegates supported Augustin Ngomjua. None. I agree very strongly that unfortunately, although the constitution was drawn up and both parties are equal, in the application, in reality, it came out that Anglophones or West Cameroonians or former Southern Cameroonians had a raw deal. First of all, the population structure was against West Cameroon. Secondly, the inability of West Cameroon politicians to put aside their individual interests in the interests of West Cameroonians was completely lacking. There's this tendency of always saying that Amadou Ahidjo should be blamed. Amadou Ahidjo deceived Frontier. In politics, what counts is the interest. And if Amadou Ahidjo was bent on defending the interests of French Cameroonians and his own interest, political interest, what prevented West Cameroonian politicians from doing the same? At the Fumban conference, there was a time when Frontier and Joa were quarreling publicly. And Bilek walked up to Ndeli and said, please let us intervene and advise them not to expose us. And Dr. EML Ndeli replied, allow them. They brought us here. That should give you an idea. And surprisingly, when on Friday, the 21st of July 1961, Southern Cameroon delegation presented their suggestions after they looked through the draft, they told Ahidjo and thanked Ahidjo for having allowed them to go through his draft. Get that very well. Thanked Ahidjo for having allowed them, which means what? They felt that they were not equal and intentionally or not exposed themselves. One would have expected that Southern Cameroon will come with its own draft, the Republic of Cameroon will come with its own draft, the two parties will sit, discuss, and finally adopt a single draft. But that was not the case. We thank you, Mr. President, for having allowed us to have a look at your draft. So these are some of the points which led to the suffering of West Cameroonians, and it should be stated clearly, this is not politics. There is an Anglophone problem, and the Anglophone problem runs through marginalization and all what we are experiencing, be it the educational system, administrative system, legal system. There is an Anglophone problem.
And if you were called upon to make proposals for national unity to be strengthened, what will you be saying?
First of all, Cameroonians should be made to understand the importance of national interests. It's so disheartening that most Cameroonians put their personal interests above national interests. And I'll just give one example before I move into your question. Is it acceptable that Cameroonians, civil servants, will embezzle billions of francs, and Cameroonians have ill-equipped hospitals? Cameroonians don't have roads, and Cameroonians will embezzle billions of francs. It is aching. How do you explain that in some government schools, pupils don't have adequate classrooms? They sit on the ground, bare ground, and follow up lessons. Cameroon is a rich country. very rich in human resources, very rich in natural resources. So where is the problem? The supreme interest of the nation. Now to come back to your question, once there is the political will, unity is assured. And it should be recognized that the Cameroon nation is made up of at least 250 tribes or ethnic groups. And these 250 have their different cultures, their different traditions, which means we should preach unity in diversity. We should allow each culture to flourish. At the end of the day, the national interest is paramount. So what I'm suggesting is that Cameroonians should not have this tendency, this fear that federalism means secession. No, it doesn't mean that. My advice is that Cameroonians should have the political will. Federalism is not a magic word that will solve all problems. Nigeria is a federal structure, has problems. Even the US has problems. But so far it is the best system of government which can help individual groups to express their feelings and develop. So I would advise for a federal structure, not a return to the two states. The federal structure of the 10 present regions, the 10 states, as long as the financial formula will be well spelled out, so that each state should understand that the bulk of its finances to run its activities, social, economic, whatever, will first of all come from that state or region before looking up to the federal system. So my advice is federal system should be given a try, but not a return to the two states. Because once you are talking of a return to this two state, because the story is self-determination, fine, then allow each state to be on its own, and the best way out is the federal structure.
Professor of History Victor Julius Ngo on Cameroon Calling, broadcast on the CLTV radio network.
The half-time score between Brazil and Cameroon in the first game of Group B of the competition. Here goes Rigobert's song for Cameroon, commanding, buccaneering run from him. And he's brought crashing down by Emerson. Emerson sees yellow.
I think he's unlucky, you know. I think he's really unlucky. He actually was in the challenge when Song fell into him. And I think he's going to have to accept.
At 6s and 7s, and Samuel Eto'o may get away here. Looks for Marc-Vivien Foé. Emerson, Ronaldinho. Takes on Matomo, but Matomo caught him.
Yeah, but we saw a fantastic challenge from Chateau before that. Came right across, right in. And Ronaldinho's silky skills, but Chateau watched the ball right in. Here he comes.
Idrissou's run in towards Samuel Eto'o. And Marc-Vivien Foé goes to ground. Referee lets play continue. The shot comes in from Eto'o in the end. Straight at the goalkeeper though. A change here for Cameroon. Marc-Vivien Foé is replaced by Timothée Atuba, who plays for Bâle. Had a wonderful in towards Eto'o. Good turn from Samuel Eto'o as well. Looks to accelerate away from Lucio. Has a tug of the shirt though, and he's penalised for that.
Well, great play by Eto'o, but Lucio did fantastically well as a defender there. Stood big, stood strong, put his body in the way, and did a good defender's job.
Now Eto'o might prop it here. Samuel Eto'o! Fantastic goal for Cameroon! He simply lashed the ball beyond Dida, and Cameroon, 10 minutes from time or less, lead in the Stade de France against the world champions.
Well, absolutely magnificent. Lucio will be very disappointed. The bounce beat him. He didn't read it properly. Forward to help them.
Belletti goes for goal! Very, very close from Belletti.
Well, I've liked him tonight. He has got forward. He came on the inside, not his strongest foot, but all that took the paint off the post. Terrific strike, and you just believe it.
A momentous victory for the indomitable Lions of Cameroon. They have beaten the world champions Brazil by one wonderful Samuel Eto'o goal to nil. The roar of the Stade de France.